Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of those Collinsport boys. Jewel couldn't make it with us tonight. It's kind of an interesting story. I mean, we do thank him for having us as part of his podcast, but unfortunately, he told me that he had to fly out to Hollywood. That he revealed he said claimed there was an NDA, but he's got a starring role on season 2 of Peacemaker, and he claims he's shooting scenes with John Cena. So if you've got that and you're watching that, we'll see him soon. But otherwise, we're glad to be here, and be sure to watch our look at our second hour where we all three of us are going to debate whether Franz Kafka who would win in an MMA fight match between Franz Kafka and Albert Camus. But until then, we're going to talk about the movie Brain Donors. And so, with Ellen and Patrick, I turn the floor over to you. Thoughts?
Brain Donors was a movie that I heard about from a good friend of mine who's a LA stand-up comic with an LA stand-up comic's name, Andrew Miller. Straight from the 80s. And he was a big Marx Brothers fan who would follow Frank Ferranti around the country. I mean, he was like at that level. And for years, I mean, for like, my God, 30, 40 years, he's been saying, Patrick, you need to see this movie. It's a Marx Brothers movie. And I never got around to it. You know, it was the sort of thing that, came and went from the theaters very quickly and didn't really have much of a streaming presence. In fact, we had to find this on an internet, internet archive. So not an easy movie to find necessarily. So I finally got around to watching it. And it is a Marx Brothers movie. There's a Groucho analog, there's a Harpo analog, a Chico analog, a Margaret Dumont. It's got the young lovers that would appear more in the MGM Marx Brothers movies.
And it's got the villainous older guy who's trying to,
a lot like the butler in Animal Crackers, or one of those figures. And it's fantastic. It was done by it was produced by Zucker when Abrams went off on his right wing kind of weirdness. Which he did. That's where the Hot Shots movies came from.
Yes.
The regrettable American Carol.
Oh, God.
Pal, just stop. I mean, there's only so hard you could sell out. Jesus. And it was written and directed, I think, by Pat Proft and Neil Israel, who were, at least Pat Proft, who was heavily involved in things like Airplane 2. Under the auspices of the brothers, Airplane 2, and they did a lot of the non-pilot episodes of Police Squad. So they were on the scene sort of as proteges or backups, kind of what William Hike was to George Lucas.
Right, and these guys were oiling on farce. I mean, they were really getting
they're great at it. They really know what they're doing, and this is the best stuff I've seen those guys do.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there are a lot of analogous plays and films that deal with the Marx Brothers, but this is like full.
This is the Marx Brothers,
full bore. You know, it's there's no nod and a wink or anything except for what the Marx Brothers would nod and wink. Everything from The Man Who Came to Dinner to Our Day in Hollywood, Night in Ukraine. They all have their Marx Brothers stuff going on. Some more deliberate than others, but this is an amazing template of Marx Brothers humor.
And my real point of contention with this, and Alan and I were talking about this earlier, has nothing to do with the movie. It has to do with critics at the time, who seemed, in my memory, to completely write the movie off as being, on the level of Disorderlies. Which actually makes me want to go watch Disorderlies.
Right, sure.
But that just barely worth their time to diss. And the thing that bothers me about that is all these pseudo-intellectual assholes were no doubt worshiping at the altar of the Marx Brothers.
Sure.
Well, it's like, guys, what? You've got more Marx Brothers, but it's just different enough that it doesn't feel like a lame ripoff.
Right.
And I'm sorry, guys, but you can't have both.
And I think you're right. I think there's a snobbery involved. There certainly is a historical snobbery involved, which is weird because the Marx Brothers were never about snob humor. As a matter of fact, they cut it down at every point. Margaret Dumont was the whole point of, snobbery being cut down, cluelessness, social cluelessness. So yeah, it's like they say, oh well, that's they're just imitations, that kind of thing. They don't recognize the actual quality of the work as a tribute slash homage.
Come on,
Mhm.
continuation.
Right. But this is one of the I don't know that this isn't certainly not the first thing Totoro ever did, but it's certainly among his earlier
Pretty
work.
early.
It's among his earlier works, and he's fantastic. I mean, there's no sign. They obviously you can't have any sign of hesitation or anxiety about doing this kind of work. It cannot read that way at all. And these guys probably improvised and did a lot of stuff in advance. I'm thinking, as the Marx Brothers did when they were developing their routines.
There's a real go for broke, quality of the performances. I mean, the
Yeah,
fearless,
yeah.
they're absolutely fearless. You know who else is fearless in this movie? Playing a part that lesser actors would find as insulting as the character might.
Hmm.
But that's Nancy Marchand,
Yes.
who's just she
Well, she was a brilliant actress anyway. She was fantastic.
and she completely gives herself over to the whole Margaret Dumont thing, allowing herself to be insultingly eroticized
Right,
throughout the film with
right.
no self consciousness at all.
No, not at
Loved
all.
it.
As a matter of fact, she becomes erotically aware that she's being eroticized,
Well,
and swooning at the attention and so on, as a Margaret Dumont
right.
character might do. Uh, for those of you who don't know who Nancy Marchand was, she's passed away. You might remember her from the Sopranos. She played Tony Soprano's mother. Terrible character, terrible woman,
Olivia.
brilliant job of acting. But Nancy Marchand could also play glamorous roles, and in this, she's kind of semi-glamorous. She's certainly got the diamonds and the whole thing going on with this, and it works very well. But Nancy Marchand's career was so varied that she was also in um, The Balcony by Jean Genet
Mm-hmm.
early in the '60s, in the same production that Grayson Hall of Dark Shadows was in. So, I mean,
Yeah.
she could be outre as well as being, um, more realistic.
Until she was Livia Soprano, where she really looks very different. She's
Right.
long,
She
Jane
does.
White, her hips
Yeah.
are in different shape. Um, I knew her best from Lou Grant as
Hmm.
a newspaper owner.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, she long and varied career. Fantastic. And she is brilliant in this. She absolutely commits to it. Everybody commits to their roles in this.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
brilliantly cast. And they all got on board and they all knew what they were doing. They just, oh my God, we're gonna do the Marx Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and the enthusiasm is there. I like the title. It's so out there, but
Oh,
it's somehow like brain donors, horse feathers. Yeah, you can kind of
yeah.
figure that that's it.
Um, and was that Will Vinton Studios that did the opening credits? I
I
wonder.
would not be surprised if
I
it
don't
was
know,
because
but
it's
that's the
it's a
claymation.
similar
Yeah,
it's a similar style.
I
yeah.
was I was watching it with someone tonight, and I convinced them that that's how the news was done back then. And there was this glimmer of a moment. Where they really?
Really?
No, no, it was Super Marionation.
Sure, that's right. It's the Andersons. Um, yeah, intro and the outro is really great, and it's It's also reminiscent of an earlier period, although it's done in a then modern style.
Like Dr. Goldberg, or
Hmm.
Dr. Goldberg. Um, Dr. Goldberg's my chiropractor. Uh,
Dr.
uh,
Goldford's my podiatrist. Okay.
Dr.
uh,
Goldberg's my primary care,
yeah,
and I saw her yesterday.
Uh,
I yeah, it was a real throwback in the best sense. And then the music. Ira Newborn did a lot of the Saturday Night Live guy movies,
hmm.
and with a just a great Elmer Bernstein sound because I liked Elmer Bernstein, and it's
Sure.
I imagine he was a protege of Bernstein's. If
Well,
not, he was a big fan,
yes,
and
absolutely.
it's a great score.
Yeah, it is. And it's also, again, it's reminiscent in a lot of ways, without being overly nostalgic, because we are dealing with a modernization and characters that are archetypes rather than literal
Um,
copies.
no matter how lousy some of those movies were, like Spies Like Us, which is not a great film, or
No,
Three Amigos, which is a pretty bad
it
film.
is a bad film, but it's so bad. It's one of those so bad it's good. You can watch it and laugh at it.
I only saw it once,
Yeah.
but the scores to those movies are great. And
Hmm.
those are Bernstein, and I think they really help those films a lot.
Yes.
And this helps this movie, although
Hmm.
it doesn't need a crutch. It gets even
It's
more of a
just a
boost.
sweetener. Yeah, it just makes it sweeter. That's
Yeah.
all.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, yeah, it's interesting is that this film, beat for beat, it's like a scene by scene remake of A Night at the Opera, except by changing the format. Because like
Hmm.
I remember seeing ads for this movie when it came out. I never got to see it because I think literally it may have played in Chicago. I don't remember ever seeing it at a theater, so I'm thinking it must have played like for 1 week and then disappeared.
Yeah, yeah,
I
maybe
mean,
in one of the
yeah,
art
and I
houses.
first caught
Yeah.
it on home video, and I actually own it on Amazon, so you can because they had it on sale for $3. But
Cool. Yeah, it's certainly worth $3. I mean, my God, it's a
mhm.
great little movie.
Yeah, and I think too what makes it good is that and something I've been thinking about with a lot of contemporary comedy because one of the things that's happening right now is one of the biggest theatrical hits is the Naked Gun reboot. And that's a franchise I never thought could work now because most comedies now usually are either um, they're like one of three types. One is the fart joke, gross out, etc., for the
Yes.
sake of doing that. The second is kind of um, the the actors improvise so much that they don't instead of sticking to a script or improving the script, they basically improvise their way and it never quite works. You
Yep.
Uh-huh.
kind of go because they're laughing, but
Yeah, sure.
it's
But
um
we're not necessarily as hard as they are. Yeah.
yeah, and then the third type is usually the hey, you get it? Here's a reference, here's something you
Hmm.
know, you
Well,
get it.
yeah, I'd like to bring up something along those lines. Um, how many comedies do they really make anymore? I mean, one of the reasons that Naked Gun may be successful,
Yeah.
we just haven't had a comedy.
Right. It's certainly. I will tell you this: living with a woman, there are lots of rom-coms being made.
Yeah, and that's
Uh, so
yeah.
there are those, but that's a different animal. That's a
It
completely
is.
different
Yeah,
animal.
and I think now since a lot of streamers like Netflix take the second screen approach, where it's you don't watch something to watch it, it's what you have while you're on your phone or on your tablet or laptop.
Hmm.
I wonder maybe the reason we don't get as many comedies is that they see it as comedy you have to pay attention to. Like you
Yeah.
can't
Good
you have
comedy,
to
you do.
really
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I like. I mean, I like farce. Always loved farce. Used to do it on stage. Directed a few. So I've always had an appreciation for the discipline of that genre. But you have to be a disciplined audience, an onlooker too, in
Mhm.
order to fully appreciate it because things are happening fast. And this is one of those kind of movies. It's happening very quickly, and you can, if you're not. right on top of it, you can miss stuff that's going by. Um,
I,
you know,
I had a very strange experience about 2 years ago, and it was where I was directing a play I directed before, a very funny play. I thought just a play that would be bulletproof in its funniness, and that was Picasso at the Le Panagile,
hmm
which is a Steve Martin play. So you got
yes,
Steve
it is.
Martin right
Seen
there,
it. Yeah.
and I've directed it twice, and it's a really beautiful play, and it's very funny. And a lot of the jokes are wonderfully obvious. They do the work for you.
Yeah.
So because Martin can be very sophisticated and he can be very just very, very straightforward. The I did it with a group of high school kids, bright, bright, culturally literate high school kids. They did not get a single joke in the show. They would stare at me as I would have to explain that something was funny, and it was the worst of Generation Z. It,
It is. It's difficult for the latest generation because there's so much of the lost generation humor in that play. There's so much of a generation, a literary generation, that Parisian generation. With Gertrude Stein and Picasso and all these people. It really the last 25 years, nobody knows anything about it.
but there are also a bunch of pee and sex jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's those are the things. It wasn't the in jokes about the art scene or whatever. It's just the absurdist jokes that exist on their own. And so the everything culminated in a note session that I had towards the end of the play, and I just said, I said, "Do you? What was the last comedy you saw?" And that's where I realized we hadn't made any.
Wow.
And so that was one thing. They just weren't growing up in a culture where every year there was some sort of comedy everyone of every age went to see,
Oh, let's
no
see.
matter how transgressive. Number one.
Right.
Number two, that
Comedy is transgressive. I'm sorry. It is.
sure, it has to be. It has to be. And I finally said to them, I said, I you don't have any. I don't think you. Do you have any sense of humor at all? And they basically, very proudly, just stared. They gave me the Generation Z stare and said no. And I thought, Jesus Christ, who would admit something like that? And
Satan would admit
Satan would
that.
admit it. Satan is a zoomer.
yeah, I mean, it was, but they were proud of it. And so the pleasant thing that happened is that we did three performances, and at the last performance, thank God the millennials showed up. Or
And
not
they start
millennials.
laughing.
No,
Right.
yeah, it was a Generation X. Generation
hmm
X and some silent generation showed up who were
Sure.
anything but silent. And they laughed. They laughed hard at the right places. And
hmm
so during strike, they were talking about how, well, yeah, it was weird, but Mr. McRae said it was a comedy. And it's like, yeah. And they even quoted jokes that I had explained to them that they understood, but they didn't get why they were funny. There's a good one where a guy is constantly going off to urinate. And at some point, when they're talking about his reasoning, he just says, well, it's a process of elimination. And
Boom. Yeah.
yeah, and it got a huge laugh. And they all acknowledged that I had explained it and told them it would be a huge laugh. And they refused to. I mean, they got it, but they just refused to find it funny. And
Right.
I think that's. I'm gonna wrap that up now, but I think it's worth honestly a dissertation. I mean, Gordon, you're a psychologist, so I'm sure you have thoughts on that. I'm utterly baffled still.
I think I don't think I have a solid answer. I think a lot of it you could I think a lot of it is just if I had to guess, I think a lot of it might just be that because Gen Z is dealing with a very fragmented source of, well, our media landscape is such that you've got access to a ton of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, in that you 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 also have like we when you look at our generation, Generation X, we've got our extension of history may extend to, the 70s and the 60s. And then we've got that like kind of imaginary space of everything before that.
Mhm.
Their perspective, because they're relatively young, it may just go up to 2000. They've
That's about
they've
it.
lived in a post 9/11 world. They live in a fractured media space. So for them, trying to find something that's funny may actually be different. I mean, that's why you see like all sorts of memes and, shit posting and things like that, because that's like where their humor is centered on.
They know sarcasm, I'll guarantee you that much.
Yeah, they
Right.
do.
They totally know sarcasm. And, you can get humor out of sarcasm, obviously.
So that's why if you have Gen Z kids and they misbehave, you should say, you know what? God hates you. You're bad. And God
Uh,
doesn't like you when you're bad. He only likes you when you're good. So you need to
yeah,
be good and not bad.
the last misadventure I had with them was a group that refused to enjoy defending your life, which I don't know how they pulled that one off, claiming that it didn't have enough exact words, Greg Brady, post irony,
Okay.
which to me is uh, buzzword horseshit. I
Well, it
honestly.
is, but at the
I
same
know what
time,
post irony is, but it's
yeah,
like, why do you have this Procrustean bed that dictates everything about what you're going to find funny?
right. Right. Well, the thing is, too, laughing is uncool in many
Well, sure,
situations.
sure.
It's totally uncool. So there's that element that goes on as well. But
It's all
I don't
creative.
think Zoomers have, and this is not true of all Zoomers, because I know some that have just refined senses of humor.
Mhm.
But many of them, you're correct. And one of the reasons is because they've never had a development of humor in their lives. It's all been like Gordon was saying, memes and quick things, quick shots and funny takes and, somebody's naked butt in a bathroom or, things like that. Those give a visceral sort of humorous reaction, but that's undeveloped
Yeah,
sense.
Yeah,
yeah. Like they never had the experience of like say, oh, when there was a broadcast channel that had turned to being a pay channel, and you knew when all the adult movies are that you knew you could tune the UHF to kind of put
sure.
that little scramble thing down so you can see it. Not necessarily speaking from experience,
All
just
right.
as an example.
Yes, the Playboy channel was always on the off, so you'd have to.
What was yeah, the to finish the defending your life thing. The place where I finally kind of froze them in their tracks was, they worship Neil deGrasse Tyson, as well they
Sure.
should. And I think there's a lot of with a number of them, there's a little of the, well, some of my favorite intellectuals are black, with their love of Dr. Tyson,
Sure.
because it's virtue signaling, and it's I think it's his favorite movie, and I brought out quotes from Dr. Tyson on that, and
Yeah.
they're,
Oh
oh,
no, what do we do
oh no, we
now?
can't we can't just like that, yeah.
Mhm. But weirdly, their their worship of Tyson is also in small doses. I
Oh,
mean, I get him in small doses too. On Facebook, you get the TikTok feeds, and you get him on TikTok feeds, and you're getting nothing more than a couple of minutes at a time. I wonder how many of them have actually sat down and listened to him interviewed for over an hour.
I just watched Cosmos,
Hmm.
which is great.
Yeah.
And actually, that takes us back to good old Seth MacFarlane. I still think, one of the most interesting, although controversial, comical forces out there, who directed Naked Gun
Yes.
Hmm.
and produced Cosmos.
As they say, never limit yourself.
Well, and the man doesn't.
No,
You know,
he doesn't.
after infuriating, I think the trans community with some gag on Family Guy, and
Yeah.
I don't know what, he turns around and I don't know if you watch Orville, but he
Yeah.
gets some of the most interesting pro-trans scripts out there.
Yeah.
And in fact, the major conflict of the series has to do with a civil war on a planet over transphobia.
Hmm. The ultimate culture war. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the guy paid his dues.
Yeah.
Yep, and I think his next step will be defeating Matt Stone and Trey Parker in a Waffle House parking lot
Well,
in a
that's
slap
what
fight.
really happened.
Oh, and they will call it Loot Waffle House.
Uh, yeah, I was always sorry those guys were at each other's throats.
Yeah. Well, somebody said something. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, McFarlane's just like, okay, yeah, I don't really care for them, but like it's not
It's not that big of a deal.
vicious.
He's gonna go count his money. Uh,
Seriously.
and so are
They
they.
all count their money at this
Yeah,
point.
so are they. They're what multi-billion-dollar FU to
God.
Paramount, which I think's wonderful. The $1.8 billion FU to them,
And
which is
then,
great.
and then there's Matt Groening who keeps his mouth shut uh, most of the time,
Wow.
and he's had a show that's gone on for what, 33 years now, 35 years.
Is Futurama
Simpsons.
still on the air?
What's
Or
that?
Yeah,
is
It's it's
Futurama still on?
it's on Hulu, and I think it's like at season 13, but I don't know if that's 13 of the new besides the Fox stuff, or if they started with like wherever they ended with Fox.
I
I
think
don't.
I think the Simpsons started in what, 89?
89.
Yeah,
Yeah, a winter of 89.
yeah. And
Late, like November or something.
before that, Matt Groening was famous for a rabbit with really long ears.
Yeah,
Life in Hell,
Love it,
Yeah.
Life in Hell. Yeah.
Ekbar and Jeff.
I was about to mention them. They were my favorite of his running characters.
Hmm. Yeah.
Brothers, lovers, or both.
Yeah. You decide.
Yeah.
But getting back to this movie, which of course all of the people that we've been talking about are mavens of comedy and mavens of the kind of comedy that we're talking about from this film, as well as other forms, but certainly farcical stuff. You can't get much more farcical than The Simpsons and you know uh, some of the other animated ones, because you're able to do crazy stuff that would kill a normal actor, and it's still funny. But this movie comes close to that, in several occasions. And also, Gordon, it's a good observation, Night of the Opera, because the whole milieu, the backstage milieu, and all
Mhm.
that sort
Well,
of thing
well,
is
there's also
definitely.
these like little these moments where they kind of, if this movie had been made this year, we would consider them like homages and just basically fan service. But
Sure.
back then, they're very subtle because there's a callback to room service where they're taking the girl from room to room, which
Mhm.
involves, and the real scene involves a mattress. There's
Yeah.
a take on the stateroom scene from Night at the Opera. There's a take on the doctor scene from Day at the Races. Like, I don't think there are any other scenes that kind of fit, like, only because I knew, oh yeah, this looks familiar.
Mhm. Well, several times I think in the films, in the original films, they're dealing with an unconscious body, whether it's a woman or a man, and they're moving them around and sticking them in closets and doing things like
And
that. So that's classic stuff.
you have a few echoes of the garden party scene in Duck Soup.
hmm Yeah, but the great thing is they're not you get the sense that they're not like, okay, we need to throw something Marxian here. It's like there's a scene, they write it, and it's, oh, it's
This
not
works that way.
conscious.
Yeah, yeah, but it works that way. And I think too that the mentality of these actors going into this film would make that sort of dovetail, even if it wasn't overtly, oh,
Mhm.
we're not writing this overtly as a Marx Brothers routine. All of a sudden, it sort of becomes reminiscent of it because where they are in their heads as actors. And that the director may have something, probably did have something to do with that as well, especially early on. But I'm envisioning them rehearsing these scenes too, because they're so just yeah.
What do we know about the two guys who were not John Turturro in the movie?
I don't know much
Well,
about those guys as actors, but
well, Mel Harris, who is the guy with the accent, he's a British comedian. He's probably best known in England for doing a lot of sketch comedy work, especially on a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News.
okay.
So he's kind of he
Yeah.
passed away in 2013. Is a heart attack. I mean, he had a lot of health problems. The Harpo analog is Bob Nelson, who's kind of he's kind of a Bill Irwin kind of performer.
I was about to
Got
mention
some clowning experience.
Yeah, because I had seen him on some things before the movie came out, so I kind of knew where he was coming from, and he's kind of in that vein as well. And I mean, it's perfect casting because like Turturro has the Groucho rhythm
Yeah.
down pat.
And the
Harris
con man aspect, which Groucho played to the hilt as well. This whole double talk all the time, double talk.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Yeah, they're great. I mean, casting is king. There's no doubt about it. You cannot do something like this without the appropriate casting. It does not work. I have, by the way, my artistic director at the Winter Park Playhouse down here in Florida worked at Universal for years as one of their Grouchos. He's a musical theater actor and dancer. He was on Broadway. He was in the cast of um, Pirates Penzance back in 1980 with Rex Smith and
the Joe Pap. Yeah.
yeah, he was in that for a while. He was a swing guy, so he was one of the choral dancers and track various tracks in case somebody showed up sick or couldn't make a performance. But one of his roles, he was if you remember the in the film, this most of the scenes are intact. In one of the scenes, there's a whole bunch of Keystone Cops. He was one of those. That was one of his tracks. Um, but how I got involved with the Winter Park Playhouse was they were doing a production of Groucho: A Life in Review, which was written by Arthur Marx, his son,
Mhm.
and they lost their Chico midway through the rehearsal process. He threw out his hip or something, and so they called me in because I knew one of the actresses in the company. I'd known her for years. I'd worked summer stock with her, and she said, "Well, he can do it." And so I got called in, and my audition was I did a couple of pages, and the director, who was this semi-imperious woman, a lovely person actually, and everybody called her La. Her name was Lurleen, and La asks me, says, "How fast can you learn the lines?" Just like it's out of one of the shticky plays of the time. And I said, "Oh, about 3 days." And she says, "Good, good. We got about 7 days left. You don't mind being told what to do on stage. You're not one of those kind of actors, are you?" I said, "No. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I understand. Time constraint."
Was this
So,
the one that Gabe Kaplan did for a while?
no, he did a one-man show. This was
I
there were four of us. There were the three Marx Brothers,
Yeah. Oh,
and
great.
and also a Universal Woman character, which was my friend played.
Because in the Kaplan version there is a Chico.
Okay.
I swear to God.
Maybe he did. Maybe he did that at one point. I know he did a one-person version of Groucho too, but maybe he did do that. It's entirely possible.
Mhm.
And who was the guy that you mentioned? That's
Frank Ferranti.
yes, and I think he'd done it too.
Mhm.
And I know that he did Day in Hollywood, Night in Ukraine.
Well, his was the one man show.
Yeah,
I think Frank
yeah,
Ferranti was a one man band.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because he started doing a, a a show that Arthur Marx had written about his father, and then Ferrante started developing his own show. And he actually
Yeah.
released it on DVD as a PBS special a couple of years ago.
Well, the Arthur Mark show that we did was called Groucho: A Life in
Yeah,
Review,
that's the one.
Revue, where
Yeah.
we did songs and shtick and routines and all this sort of thing as he was telling his life story. So yeah, that was my first experience with Groucho. Was a guy who had played the character for years at Universal and was also a Broadway performer.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Marx Brothers when I was a kid on like late night television. In
Oh
fact, I
yeah,
was
in
look,
terms of yeah, I'd seen several of the films, but I never delved that deeply into the mythos and the history of it until
well,
that.
when I was a kid, I immediately, because I grew up, when I was a child, that was right when the Marx Brothers revival was starting. Because
Hmm.
I think they had found a print of Animal Crackers in like 70, 71, so they started showing that, and
Yeah.
that kind of had a spiral. In fact, I actually got to see a live version of Animal Crackers at the Goodman in 2009.
How
Cool.
was it?
It was pretty good. Their Groucho was really good. Um, their Chico was excellent.
Mhm.
And for their Harpo, they had hired a woman who had clowning experience. And she was, what was great is I would say she had a slightly more manic energy than Harpo did.
Hmm.
But again, there's a difference between filming and when you're on a stage, it's like, who's going to tell you no?
Right. We had a woman play a Harpo in Hollywood, Ukraine when we did
Hmm.
it at Winter Park Playhouse as well. She was brilliant. Dancer,
Hmm.
high energy person. She was pregnant at the time, so she'd walk off stage and throw up every once in a while, but she was brilliant. And she
Winter.
threw confetti all over the stage, which we hated. The tech crew hated the confetti going everywhere.
When the cop is shaking her hand
Mm.
in Animal Crackers, and the silverware and everything else falling,
Yes,
her water breaks at the end of that.
yes.
The situation.
That's
Hmm.
Can
right.
you do that every night? No, I can't.
Oh, sorry. Only
Taking
one
about
time.
9 months to.
Closing night. We'll do it. Okay. And then off to the hospital they went. Yeah, she did all those shticks. She had the coat full of everything. Uh,
Favorite thing in Animal Crackers for me is because I've dealt with it so often in real life, dealing with actual musicians,
mhm.
is Chico's negotiation about how it's more expensive if they don't rehearse and
Yes,
all
yes, exactly like that. And he says, how about if I don't have you show up at all? Yeah, you cannot afford
you
it.
can't afford it. And to me, that's one of those great theatrical moments that is completely unrealistic and completely true.
Right. Because well, and it's the delivery too. It's just like it's very matter of fact.
And
Although at the same time, it's like farcically paced. It's just brilliant work. A lot of people that look at them at first blush can't fully appreciate what they're doing. It
yeah,
takes
that's too bad. I mean, to me, it's very user friendly.
it is, but I'm saying
I
they can't
but
fully appreciate it. I don't think they
I
can't appreciate it. They
yeah.
just can't fully appreciate the enormous amount of work that went into those routines. Years.
I came across them around the time I think Gordon did. And there were local channels that would do things like show especially coconuts and animal crackers back to back.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes in rap all night. I remember maybe it was a cable channel that
I
did
think they were rather inexpensive to acquire for local
it.
stations.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then PBS did an amazing documentary that is still out there, although I think it's cut. I think like an hour is cut out of it, called Marx Brothers in a Nutshell,
Hmm.
which I thought was just tremendous. I mean, that honestly, if we talk about just movies, documentaries, things like that, that was a very seminal, formative film for me.
Yeah, and in the 90s, there was the Unknown Marx Brothers, and HBO did a 1 hour called The One, the Only Groucho.
See, I didn't see either of those.
I think you might be able to find them on YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube has got several documentaries on the Marx Brothers. So yeah, probably find it up there.
Now, like for years I taught a comedy course, and eventually I had to stop because I found nothing funny. And it's true.
Just
And
wear it out. Yeah.
you know what absolutely infuriated them? I mean, you could just empathically feel the waves of hatred rolling. I'm not kidding.
Yeah,
What
I believe you.
was Terminal Blaze, and this one baffled me, although I'm sure others could explain it. W.C. Fields. They hated Fields.
No, I don't hate Fields, but I can
Oh, I
understand how
love Fields.
some people do
I love
because
W.C.
he is a total um what's the word, the best word to use? Some people get turned off by the edge that he has of being a misanthrope.
They just found him anti-funny. And
See, I think his being a misanthrope is hilarious.
oh, he's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah,
And I think I like his domestic comedies where he's the victim the most. You know,
yeah,
it's a gift, Man on Flying Trapeze, things like that.
yeah. Sure. Yep, yep. I mean, he did have an edge to him. He was also an alcoholic, so I mean, he had an edge to him.
Take it back. I
Uh,
don't know if it was Man on Flying Trapeze. I take that back. Bank Dick.
okay,
Yeah,
back
yeah.
dick. Yeah, yeah.
He's playing the con man in Man on the Flying Trapeze, which is
Um,
other persona.
yes, yeah. It's yeah. He in several of his movies he does play a different persona than the top hat,
Yeah,
the drunk,
my God.
or the guy who hates kids all the time, and
Well, he always is. Baby Leroy is his constant nemesis.
yeah, yeah. It's well, I mean, it's perfect comic foil because it's a routine that he's worked up over many years, and you know,
The
he,
thing, the thing about Fields that I love stills of Fields because there is just such pain and wisdom in that face, in that thousand-yard stare
sure,
that he has sometimes, especially when he's not in character, he's not doing this.
right.
And wow, I mean, those are very moving portraits.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he was a world weary guy, especially in the last decade or so of his life,
Mhm.
um,
The
for
Jim
various reasons. But yeah, he had a pathos that he could utilize in his comedy, no doubt about that. Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
some people have a knee jerk reaction. This guy is not a nice guy. I
Had
don't
Fields
like him. You
had
know.
Fields happened, 20 or 30 or 40 years later, he would have wound up in dramas like Bill
Mhm.
Murray.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he would have been brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was. I mean, he was well trained out of vaudeville
Hmm.
and going into stage work and film and the
Very
whole nine yards.
physical, very
He had
physical performer, which we
yes,
don't think of because of his weight. But I mean, my God, the juggling stuff he would do, the book
yeah.
routine and all of that. I was
That's the vaudevillian stuff. That's the
yeah.
stuff he initially learned how to do. That was his first bread and butter routine, actually. Um, so yeah, I mean, He's one of those guys that went way back. Probably would have been still performing, another decade or two if he hadn't, passed away. Gotten, because he had bad health problems from alcohol.
Drinking.
You know,
Yeah, constant drinking.
yeah, yeah. He's a key figure in that book I told you about minutes of the last meeting.
Mm.
He's in there, and Barrymore is in there, and a guy by the name of Sadakichi Hartman, who was a figure in Hollywood at the time. All the actors knew who Sadakichi Hartman was. Nobody else knew who he was. He was in The Thief of Baghdad, and they had to reshoot all of his shots because he refused to show up on time. But he was also the editor of a San Francisco newspaper, legitimate journalist. He was half German and half Japanese. Sadakichi Hartman, interesting character. But I was given that book to read minutes of the last meeting by somebody who had been in AA for a number of years, and he said, "You should read this. This is the experience of alcoholism," because it was. These guys were all heavy drinkers.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting book. But yeah, Fields, genius.
Mhm.
Don't care about
And
anything.
I could not find any way to translate him to this one group. Earlier groups had really liked him. Earlier groups I found either liked Chaplin or they liked Keaton or they
Mm-hmm.
liked the Marx Brothers or they
Sure.
liked Fields
But
because
they
I think.
like somebody. Yeah, yeah.
But that last group was just so full of hatred towards everything. No, I'm not kidding. It
No,
was
I know you're not.
it
It's
was
just
like tan death threats
absurd to me
every
that they
day
would.
going
Yeah,
in. And
yeah.
and they were miserable, and they made me miserable, and that's
Hmm.
why I just said no
I'm
more.
not going to do that anymore. Sure.
Yeah.
I get that. I get that. You can run into a bad bunch and it can kind of sour
Hmm.
the whole bucket. So, but yeah, I mean, obviously, it's interesting because I was growing up in the late '60s into the '70s and so on, and that was an era in Hollywood where all the golden age or a lot of the golden age actors, there was still a lot of leftovers. They were still alive. Some of them were still working, and so you had these weird relationships like Alice Cooper and Groucho Marx,
Yeah.
great friends. uh, Groucho used to call him up in the middle of the night when he couldn't sleep. Come over and play pinochle or some such
That's
bull.
great. God, that's
And
wonderful.
Cooper
What
would
a
bring a 6 pack of beer and he'd go over to Groucho's
what a
house.
what a two-man show that would be.
Hmm.
Yeah, these guys, Groucho and God, I want to say Astaire and some of these people went to see Alice Cooper's show and they just looked at it and they said, yeah, it's kind of horror show stuff, but it's also like it's like the best of like the old vaudeville acts
He
because
is,
it's very theatrical.
he's on stage with James Randi.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, you don't get better than that, and he's a great, I think, bridge
yeah,
for a lot of them.
yep, yep. Um, but they all in the '70s, in particular, these guys were all aging out, but some of them, like I say, were still working, and they were in the scene with some of these younger musicians and actors and so on because they wanted to be a part of it. Uh, and Groucho was one of those guys because Groucho used to appear on tons of talk shows because he loved to give one-liners. He was too, I'm too fucking old to do a whole show here, but I can do Lydia the Tattoo Lady until the cows come home on
Because
talk.
because Chico needed the money.
Chico didn't need the money.
Chico
Uh,
needed the money. Yeah.
yeah, that was one of the poignant moments in Arthur's show was Chico needing the money towards the end of his life, and there was a period where Groucho brought him on to You Bet Your Life and did all the stuff to help make him some bucks. Uh, but he was kind of a hopeless case. He gambled more than he did anything else.
Did you read Harpo Speaks?
Hmm.
Mm-mm.
It's a good book. It's a
Yeah,
really good book. Yeah.
he wrote some good. He had a compendium of letters that was pretty good too.
Oh well, I know Groucho did.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Groucho, oh, Groucho letters. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
terrific.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a really interesting. Earlier this year, there's a really interesting biography of Zeppo Marx, who this was a guy. This was a guy who, everyone claims that you know, he he was kind of pushed into showbiz by his mom, but what she did was she kept him because he was like a full 10 years younger than his brothers. Zeppo
Hmm.
did like kid acts because they knew like his brothers were going to, brothels and
Yeah,
drinking dens.
kept him
Um,
partitioned for a
and
while.
this was a guy who the reason he got sent to perform was he spent his high school stealing cars.
God.
He after he kind of left the after he left the act, and he was just kind of like, it was less about frustration, more like I just don't, it would be like if you asked one of us to work at McDonald's, after like about 2 hours, we'd be like, I don't want to do this
Can't do this
anymore.
anymore.
Did he
I
Right.
go
don't
into
care if I
real
get free fry.
He ended up being a
real
talent
estate?
agent, I
I
think.
Hmm.
was it,
He's
I
a
thought it
talent
was
agent.
real
He
estate.
got involved with gangsters at one point in Vegas. That he had a gambling problem like Chico did,
Right.
except in the book, and I think it's written by Robert S. Bader, so it's worth checking out of your library, going to Amazon, whatever. Is that with Chico, even though he gambled, he he was kind of like casual about it. He was good natured. Um, if Zeppo lost and you crossed him, he'd get mean. Like he
Yeah.
was vicious.
Well, I will tell you one thing about Chico. He was so good natured about it all that the bookies didn't want to break his legs. They
Hmm.
gave him every opportunity to pay it
He's
off.
a very charming man. I mean,
Yeah.
just incredibly seductive. Now didn't Zeppo wasn't Zeppo's last wife Frank Sinatra's last wife? I think
Yes,
In
Barbara Sinatra was
yes, Barbara Marx.
in fact,
Yeah.
in the book, Zeppo and Barbara are living together, and Frank's like the best friend, living next door. And um, Zeppo, um, he was not a good husband at all. Like with his first wife, they basically like they had adopted two kids because it was the thing to do
Sure.
in 1930s Hollywood. The two kids have both reported that they basically just they ate with the maid. That both
The parents
parents are just
ignored
like,
them, neglected
yeah.
them. Yeah.
But when you get to Barbara, he's like, oh hey, you're a sexy showgirl. Expects her to be typical 1950s, stay in the house. And Frank is always coming over and
Yeah. Forget
to
about
hang
that.
out. And what started happening was Frank started coming over when
Frank.
Zeppo kept leaving. Um, Zeppo would leave, and then what would happen is because their houses were next door, even though Zeppo moved out of his house, he never sold it because he wanted to remind Sinatra of what he did.
I
I
don't. I can imagine Sinatra going, "So what? I don't care."
I bought Barbara Sinatra a Dr. Pepper once. It's a true story. She,
Yeah.
she was getting some award at UC Riverside for contributions and things like that because it was the closest UC to Palm Springs.
Sure. And
And
that's
she
where
wandered
they
back into
live.
the green room. She was really thirsty, and apparently she likes soft drinks. And she didn't have any change, and I did. And so I got her a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
That that's neither here nor there.
Cool.
Nice.
That
Yeah.
Hey,
was
I
the
once starred in a
prescription
movie
for the
with
day.
I once shared a scene with Robert De Niro in a movie.
Yeah, what? Seriously? What was it?
Yeah, Midnight Run.
Really? What'd you do a midnight run?
Okay, well, the train sequence. The actual scene is, and the scene ends with Grodin like scolding uh, De Niro for a tip, and you see a little gray upper arm on the
Huh?
right side of the screen. That's me. I was putting myself through school, so I was doing extra work.
And LA stand-up comic with the LA stand-up comics name, Andrew Miller, is in stripes. And he's running across the street at the beginning of the movie when Bill's loading the suitcases into the back of the taxi. He's got a red vest, one of those puffy vests like Marty McFly wore, and he wore that specifically so that he'd be easy to pick out.
Sure.
Hmm. Well, I was also shared a scene with Robert. I was also background in a scene with Robert Young and Drew Barrymore.
What was
TV
that?
TV movie Conspiracy of Love. It's about 23 minutes in at Cubs Park, and I'm in this big, large white jacket, so you can't miss me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So remember, kids, if you want to learn comedy, you want to learn how to act, be an extra.
An extra.
Hang out with celebrities.
If you want to see my Marx Brothers writing, Roger Ebert quotes me in his Great Movies essay about duck soup.
Cool.
I was writing for an English website, and so he referred to me, and it was in the very early days of the internet. So he, just Alta Vista'd, uh,
Yes.
duck soup, and I had a review on an English website, and so he refers to me as British film critic. Right. It's like, no, I was just a guy who was correcting the guy who wrote the website, and he got a bunch of stuff wrong on Duck Soup. But he was very gracious about it and asked me to correct it and write my own review, and I did.
Hey, I'm actually quoted in the Wikipedia entry for the prisoner shattered visage.
What are you saying?
I talked about how the graphic novel really felt like a natural like addition to the rest of that season.
I did, yeah, I did. I really liked that. Is that in trade paper?
Yes, it is, but it's now out of Titan Comics.
Yeah, yeah. I need to get that. I had the copies when I was a kid, but I need to get that. That's really good.
Hmm.
So I think we're all in agreement that this is a fine movie.
It's a
That
very
it
good
is
movie.
that
Yeah.
it is more than just a replicant. That it is its own artistic thing that happens to also be an homage.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to pull off.
I guess it is. It is. But you've got three strong personalities of their own. You know, Totoro is definitely doing his level best in the genre of Groucho, but he's also John Turturro. You know, he's
Hmm.
playing this other character, and because it is John Turturro, you can see that line, although it blurs at times, is there. There's these two things going on, and the other gentleman as well. They're their own interpretations. They're strong enough um, artists in their own right to be able to do that. So again, I think I've said this is the fifth time I've said it. Is the casting was really good for this
Hmm.
film, really good. I give this film a 10. I don't know about you
It
guys.
is easy,
Yeah,
easy.
easy 10.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Jewel, once you fly back from Hollywood, you need to watch this movie.
Well, you can go
No
to the
excuses.
Ukraine first.
Hmm.
No, never mind.
Okay, well, it looks like that's it for tonight. I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank Alan and Patrick for showing up. Like, share, subscribe, do all that cool YouTube stuff. Jewel will put in, he'll put in, my links, Patrick's links. Maybe he'll throw in like a link to download Debian 13 because, the kids are crazy for the Linux distros.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what we'll do next time, but it'll be interesting. So thank you very much for your time and attention, and we'll see you at the next one. Good night, all.
Good
Good
night.
night from those Collinsport boys.
Dot 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 dot.